Hey everyone! Welcome back to another author pep talk here at AutoCrit. For those who don't know me, my name is Catherine. I'm a member of the AutoCrit editing team. I'm a USA Today bestselling author, and I am also the coach of the Novel 90 Writing Challenges team Pantser. And yes, that does mean I most definitely write in scenes, which is why I'm honored to be the one talking to you today about the power of writing in scenes. This kind of writing comes in alongside the more common word count goal that we usually see when we have contests or challenges or want to write in general. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get started, I'm curious to know, and you can drop in the chat for me, how many of your writing goals are word count related? Go ahead and share in the chat. This could be things like, I'm going to write 50,000 words in a month, or 1,000 words a day, or 7,000 words a week. Or maybe you're taking the full throttle course with me and you're aiming for 18,000 words by the 11th, right? How many of us have these goals? So just looking over here, I can see we definitely have a lot of people who are used to using word count goals in some aspect of their planning for their writing journey. So my question for you is then why? Why is it that so many of us track words? Because it's straightforward. It's easy to know whether or not we actually make our word count goals. Yep. There's a lot of reasons we might track words, but most of them boil down to the fact that on the surface, word count goals seem to fit all the boxes of what we call a SMART goal. This acronym for specific, write more words for the current project. Measurable, write X number of words in total. Achievable, we break this down into smaller daily chunks. Realistic, which we can manage amid busy lives, right? And time bound by a set deadline. On the surface, word count goals seem to be the way to go, the way to track whether or not you're writing, whether or not you're making progress. And they also can guide whether or not we have a book that we can publish in the end, right? If you don't put a word count goal in play and you're hoping to submit for a challenge or a contest, you might not have enough words to meet the requirement. So there is definitely a need for SMART goals like word counters to propel us forward and to keep track of our progress on the technical level. However, when we limit our writing goals to word count only goals, something that many of us do is overlook one critical flaw. What exactly should we be writing with those words? How will we know when our book is done? How many of you have ever asked, well, how do I know when I can quit writing? How do I know when my book is done? Now, maybe it's because I am a pantser. I get asked this a lot. Well, how do you know you actually have a full story if you're not writing in order, if you're writing scenes, and if you're not tracking word counts? How do you know it's done? My friends, scenes solve a lot of these problems. Without scenes, we're left deciding how many words we should write in total, by when, and what to write. And we try to find the answers by looking into external factors, right? Well, for novel 90, for you to finish in the finisher circle, the main level, you need to reach 50,000 words by the end of August. So by August 31st, you need a completed first draft from start to finish, and it needs to be at least 50,000 words long. There are other contests, there are other challenges, there are query limits that agents put into play, and you might adjust your word counts for that. But does it answer what you should be writing? No, it shows you how much total to write and by what deadline. We hear from peers and friends and mentors how much we should be writing for our genre because average word counts vary. My dark epic fantasies are going to be a whole lot longer than maybe Becca's sports romances. And that's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. But if we don't know what's supposed to make up that story, we don't understand why there's a difference. We're rebounding from past attempts at writings oftentimes when we go after a word count goal super strong, right? Maybe we said that we were going to write 3,000 words a day last time. It didn't work, and now we come back with 1,000 words a day. But maybe reframing that failure and shifting away from how many words a day you have time for to giving yourself more guidance and more purpose on what you should be writing in that time and let the words come naturally would be more beneficial to your journey in course correcting, right? And then finally, research. We love to research. We love to head to Google or your favorite, app of choice and type in average word count for insert genre book. But the problem with that is, again, it will just give you the average word counts or pages or things like that. It's not going to tell you what makes up that content. Why is an epic fantasy's average book 100,000 words and a sports romance is 50 to 65,000? Why is a children's book shorter than a YA book? Why is a mystery perhaps shorter than one of those grim dark horrors? We have to break down the genres, and we're going to do this by reading in our genre to see what readers are used to and by readdressing scenes and content. Throwing 50,000 well-intentioned words onto a page does not give you a completed manuscript. I started writing many years ago, like really, really putting the time in during NaNoWriMo. May it rest in peace. And in NaNoWriMo, so many writers would come together to go after these 50,000 words. And at the end of the challenge, it would just say, this is the now what month. That now what stems from not having had a clear idea of the story beyond the word count to pursue what scenes should be happening in which order. And it also stemmed from not knowing what to do once you hit the end, right? And this is part of why when I came on to help coach Novel 90, what excited me about this challenge is that we give you the month to plan, we give you the month to write, and then we give you the month to edit. And along the way, you're getting the resources you need to learn what you should be planning, what you should be writing, what you should be editing. And you can access any of the resources from any of the teams, right? And it's all free so that hopefully you don't have a now what month. But going after 50,000 words and just trading that over here, all it does is switch which challenge is driving your word count growth. We need to expand our horizons beyond words and give them content. So when we go beyond word counts, I've got a different approach for each team here for you to consider. Planners, you can take your outline and start expanding the key elements of your outline into scenes. What needs to happen? What scenes will move you from this point in your outline to the next point in your outline, and in which order that it should occur in? Planters, you can approach your loose outline as a guardrail, right? Or you can implement one later in order to bring order to the chaos draft you're working on. And this will help guide what you should be writing in your scenes. Pantsers, we write scenes that are in our heads from the outset usually, and then we expand on our stories from there. The whole reason we write is to discover what our stories are about. The truth of the matter all boils down to the fact that we as readers read in scenes. We are readers first. When do you decide to put the book down to go to bed for the night? Usually at a very convenient stopping space based on a scene. Chapters are sneaky. We write them. We know. Chapters are sneaky. They're designed to keep you reading from chapter to chapter. So we as readers, we read till the end of a scene and put a bookmark in the book or a receipt if we're chaotic. Good, right? We put it in the book. We set the book to the side. No, we do not dog-ear the pages. Oh, we naturally relay stories in scenes. If we tell a friend or a family member or a co-writer something about our story, we usually are going to give it to them in a scene-like chunk. And then when it comes to writing, If our word count goals alone are failing to meet the mark to get your story onto the page and you feel aimless, you feel like you're staring at a blank cursor too much, you feel like the words are just struggling to slog out, it may be time to reconsider how you're approaching writing and think about adding in writing in scenes as well. Now, I am currently teaching the Full Throttle 30-day program here at AutoCrit in the month of July, which walks day by day through what you should be writing to complete a full-length novel at the end of 1 month. And I have broken down in that class scenes in 3 different ways. I've pulled 2 slides to just sneak in here and show you and hopefully give you a starting point to write in scenes on your own. And if you would like more guidance, you are always welcome to come join me in Full Throttle. But the first kind of scenes we're going to be writing are core scenes, beats, if you will. I know that some of us are not beat sheet people. I'm a pantser and I am not a beat sheet person. Kat is a planner and she prefers those in-depth outlines. But core scenes are the core beats that make up your story. There are 7, I will show them on the screen in a second, that make up every fiction story for the most part. And then you can break those down even more. If you use a program like Save the Cat or Hero's Journey, you can take these 7 core beats and get down into what creates each one and moves your story along. These are the places that readers watch the primary transition in your story's plot and with your character growth. Things like the inciting incident that starts the character on their journey, or the conflict that comes up later in the book that propels them down into their dark moment of the soul where they have to bolster themselves for the end of the book. We have bridge scenes. These are the connectors in between your 7 main story beats. They can be multiple chapters long. These are scenes designed to show the outcome, the consequences of what happened in your core story beat, the growth of the character and transition in your plot as it goes from one key story point to the other, and then a setup for the next core story beat that is meant to happen in the book. So these are meant to show character growth, outcomes, and consequences of the plot real time. They also are where you will build narrative tension, the unputdownable factor of your book that makes readers lean in and want to read more. And then finally, we have darlings. Now, I am a huge fan as a pantser of having my creative well topped off so that I don't run out of inspiration. This helps me combat imposter syndrome and writing slumps and writing walls, writing blocks. Darlings are scenes that bring our emotions out for a character or group of characters or for something about our book. It allows us to follow our plot bunnies constructively as a side topic, knowing that it may not progress the story forward and that they may not make the final draft. The purpose of these are to be tools that help us combat burnout and slumps. It reminds us what we love about this world, what we love about these characters, and then it gives us something fun to do that is still writing, still bookish, but is uplifting instead of us pouring out constantly. This is meant to refill your creative well. So these are the 7 core story beats with a honorable mention for prologues at the very, very beginning. These are the 7 key story beats and approximately where they would fall in your book, knowing, of course, that it is all going to vary. For example, oftentimes actions, adventures, thrillers, those will start with the inciting incident first and then scatter the life before beat across the next few chapters. A mystery or horror or romance might introduce the crime, introduce a hint that a scare is to come, or introduce a meet cute that the couple might meet or cross paths for the first time, and then have a more meaningful first meeting later in the book. That is going to be part of their life before. So adjust these beats to match your genre. But these are the 7 core story beats. And so what you're going to do when you're writing in scenes, whether you write in order from the prologue all the way to the other side, or you skip the prologue for those of us who don't like or use them, start at life before and go all the way to the other side of our boat, or you write out of order, meaning, oh, I woke up from a great dream with conflict number 2 in my head. I am going to write this scene first. And then I'm going to write the bridge scene before or after it, and then write the climax or the midpoint. This could serve as a guide to make sure you have all of those key beats in the end. So that question I asked earlier, if you're writing scenes, how do you know when your book is done? How do you know when you can stop? And for me personally, I use a bingo board style spreadsheet, or in AutoCrit, you could use note cards for this. As I meet each of these core beats, I mark off what chapters they happened in, or the scene names that they happened in. And then when I have all 7, I have a completed core beat bingo board. Then each of these core beats should have bridge scenes in between, right? How did I get from here to here? Or how did I get from midpoint to conflict number 2? Those bridge scenes will also go on the bingo board. And I have at least 3 bridge scene types for each of these core beats. So by the end of the day, I know it's time to quit writing and start editing when one of 2 things happens. 1, I stall out and need an objective view of what I got written and what is still not on the page. Or 2, when I have completed my bingo board of story scenes and I know that it's about reorganizing them and expanding and trimming others. So remember, the goal of writing in scenes is to give purpose to the word count goals you're chasing. It will not replace the word count goals that you are chasing entirely. We still have minimums and maximums to meet publication guidelines, to meet our contest guidelines, but this should give purpose to the words you're pursuing on the page. You do not have to write your scenes in order, as I just said, while you're drafting. You can organize them later, like a big jigsaw puzzle. You're crafting the pieces, and at the end, when we get ready to edit, we are going to dump these pieces on the editing table and forge them into an actual puzzle that is all put together. So you might be wondering, if it's so easy to write in scenes, why are writers not talking about it more? And usually the reason falls into one of these 3 buckets. The first is planners or planters who want a little more structure try to approach their scene writing like the jigsaw puzzle people here on Team Panther. The jigsaw puzzle method is confusing if you are trying to fit your scenes into a structure. What I suggest you do instead is chronological scenes. You know you're going to open up with scene number 1 in order. Write that. Then write the bridge scenes connecting it to the inciting incident, and then write that. And then you'll naturally evolve from there. If you're a pantser, on the other hand, and you don't like thinking chronologically, or you don't like throwing all this stuff in order, you don't have to. You could just do the jigsaw puzzle approach. Something else that often stalls writers about writing in scenes is trying to write a scene without the context that will make it possible to do so. And again, this is a little more planner and plantsery, but even pantsers, if we don't have enough information to explain why somebody would do something, say something, what is their motivation, what is their stakes, what are they afraid of in that scene, it can make it difficult to relate to characters. And then there's a potential for lack of structure here. You can make your scenes as structured and planned for as you want, but you can also leave it hunky-dory wherever it wants to go. So this is why I use the bingo board method, even though I'm a pantser, because I am fine with darlings. They're a good tool for refilling creative well, but I don't want them running off. I need to corral my plot bunnies and just let one out every once in a while, instead of letting them all jump out loose like in Curious George. We need to control our plot bunnies. So the bingo board gives me the loose structure. I'm not writing in any order, but as I write a scene that fits something there, it goes in one of those buckets. And if the scene I just wrote doesn't fit into one of the buckets on my board, that's a darling, and it gets noted darling on the top. You could be super structured, take your outline, expand it into what we call scene cards, where you say this is what's going to happen in this specific scene, and then write. Or you could do hunky-dory and use a bingo board style to keep track of what you've written. Here are some tips that I have for writing in scenes if anybody would like them. The first is to label each scene, no matter what type of writer you are, even pantsers. This is not a chapter title. This is for yourself to remind you what scene happened where, so that when you're ready to organize them into chapters later in editing, it makes it easy to find them. So usually I put at the top what happens in the scene, the most important thing about the scene, like the scene where so-and-so is unalived. And then I'm going to expand the kind of scene that is off to the side with a note like core scene, bridge scene, or darling, depending on whether it matches one of those 7 core story beats, if it's a bridge scene, or if it's something completely unrelated. You could expand your initial outlines into scene cards or scene summaries if you're a planner or outlining planner before you ever write, to get you out of outlining mode and into full-blown writing mode and track what needs to happen when. You should also consider grouping your scenes for a more structured approach to writing. And that is something that I still do, even as a pantser. It's usually not planned that way, obviously, that I write a scene and then the subsequent 3 or 4 scenes naturally flow out as an aftermath. You could always write more, or you could cut stuff out for less words later, but it's important to have all of your core elements by the end of the day. So I know we're coming up here at the end of time. We talked a lot about scenes, and I hope that this helps give you some action to the empty words that you might be trying to grab. Give your words power, give your words context, give them a purpose to go after, and try writing in scenes for a little bit, not checking words, and then go back and highlight those scenes. And you might be surprised at how fast your words unlock. If you would like to go step by step with me through the month of July to finish a full-length novel and to get the in-depth daily tasks and resources that I'm doing, I put the link to grab the course in your description box. It is separate from Novel 90, but it is running alongside the writing month, so you could do both at the same time. And on the free side, come to Novel 90. We have the free writing challenge that goes through the end of August, and we have coaches with free resources. We'd be happy to help you get your book on the right path. And you could commiserate with us and let us know if scenes are working, if this helped your word count, if it helped unblock some of that writer stuff going on, and get your book on the right track again. I'm super proud of all of you. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.